quick overview of Palo Alto firewalls. So this will be the topology that we will be using throughout the Palo Alto training course. It's a very simple topology where I have a central site here and I have Dubai site here, and they are both connected to the internet. On the central site, I have a Palo Alto firewall here, which has three interfaces. One is connected to the internet, the other one is connected to my DMZ, and the other one is connected to the inside network. And I have this management interface, which is connected to this host PC that I right now am using, and it's having an address of 226 with a subnet of 192.168.11.0. And on the DMZ, I have 172.16.10 on this interface, and these are the respective IP addresses that we will assign. And because nothing has as of yet been configured on any one of these devices, not even IP addresses and host names, and nothing is yet configured. The only thing that I have configured in this topology is this Active Directory and DNS and web server. This because it required a little time, so that's why I saved some time here by installing the Active Directory here on this server, and it is having an address of 10 in this range, in this 192.168.10 range. Apart from that, nothing is being configured. And on Dubai side, I have inside network, which is having this range 192.168.20 on this interface, and on the outside, I have this subnet that we will use. And on the management interface, we would use the same PC, once again this PC, to access this Palo Alto firewall and do the management here. And I also have added one public web server here for the purpose of testing, which would have an IP address of 15.15.15. And here this internet cloud that you see is basically a Cisco router. The only thing I've done here is I've changed the icon from a router to a cloud. Let me show you this. So if I stop this and right click edit, the only thing I've done here is I've changed the icon from a router to a cloud, and it's using this image. So I'll start this back. So what I will do is I will configure NAT on this Cisco router for all these three interfaces, for the Dubai site, and for this web server, and this central site. And this interface is actually connected to the internet that we will use to get out for Dubai site and central site, and as well as the public web server. So let's go ahead and assign IP addresses to all the clients here. Let me clear the screen. So let's go ahead and configure the IP addresses for the central site devices first. Let's go ahead and assign IP to my DMZ web server, then Windows 10 client PC here, and then Windows 7, and then we will assign IP to the PC1 on Dubai site, this one, from this range, and the address is 2 here. And then we will assign IP addresses to the Cisco routers interfaces, the E02, E00 in this range and in this range, and the address is 2 on this interface here, and 2 on this, and 2 we will configure on this range here. We will configure NAT here and specify this interface, E03, E02, and E00 as inside, and E01 as outside, and we will perform PAT specifically there. So let me log in. Let me bring this here, and the password is test123. And let me also log into Windows 10 and 7. Test123 and Windows 7. So I open them all, and let's go ahead and assign IP to my DMZ web server. So it's 172.16.1.2 with a mask of 24, and the gateway is 172.16.1.1, and I'll apply, and I'll disconnect and reconnect. And I'll go to my Windows 10. Properties, and the IP is, this is my inside network, so it's having a subnet of 192.168.1.0, and the address is 11, so it's 192.168.1.11 with a mask of 24, and the gateway is 1, this IP address, and the DNS, I want to point it to my internal DNS server, which is 192.168.1.10. Okay, and let's go to Windows 7, and properties, and IPv4 1.12 here, 1.1 with a DNS of 1.10. Okay, and let me ping 11 and 10, 1.11, so I can ping client Windows 10 and also the Active Directory, can ping that as well. So let's go ahead and assign IP addresses. Let's assign to my Dubai site this PC1, and net manager. But keep one thing in mind, that I'm using Slacks PC here, which is a very tiny OS. It's similar to as of a Docker in Eve. So I'll go to properties, and but it would every time you restart this PC, this Slacks PC, it would reset the IP address, so you would have to reassign it every time that you restart it. So it's 2.2 with 2.1 as of a gateway, and the DNS is 1.10, and I'll leave the host PC as default, and I'll connect this. And the next thing, we will go and assign IP to my public web server. So this is test 123. So here I may be using Apache. I will install Apache here for the purpose of testing, and I will maybe install XAMPP server or maybe Apache here as well for the purpose of web testing, and I'll try to install FTP on both as well for the purpose of testing. So what I'll do is I'll go to menu, settings, and network, network, and settings on the ENS3 and IPv4, so manual, and the address is 15.15.15.15 with a prefix length of 24, and the gateway, once again, I will do is I will give this interface to as well, the gateway, and apply, disconnect and reconnect, and that's all. Let's go and assign IP to the interfaces of the Cisco router here on this device, and we perform that here. So what I will do is so you can see I have nothing as of yet configured. Show IP interface brief. The only thing, this interface has token DHCP IP address, which we will change, or maybe we can leave it, but let's go ahead and change this as well. Let's put it something like 90. Let's first change the host name, so it's internet or maybe ISP router, or let's leave it as internet, and interface E01 first of all, which is this interface, and I'll assign an IP address of 192.168.11.90 24, and interface E00, which is this interface that's connected to my central site, and I'll assign an IP address to of 134.1522.2 and no shut and interface E02, which is this interface connected to my Dubai site, having an address of 2 in 200.1.1 subnet. So 200.1.1.2 and no shut and interface E03, which is this interface connected to my public web server with an address of 15.15.15.2 and no shut that as well. So I should be able to ping my web server, this one. So I'm able to ping it. So let's go ahead and configure NAT here, PAT specifically for all these three. Specify we will specify E03, E02 and E00 as inside and E01 as outside. So what I will do is I will create an access list for that. So I'll create an extended one. Let's call it internet int. Maybe let's say internet and permit IP any, and we will configure NAT here. So we will say IP NAT inside source is, let's say, list of internet. So we will translate it. Basically, we will configure PAT here to this interface that's connected to the public network. So it is E01 with an overload keyword to configure specifically PAT. So I will specify this E02, E03 and E00 as inside. So interface E00 is my inside interface, IP NAT inside, and E02 is inside as well, and E03 is inside as well, and interface E01 is my outside. And I will create a default route pointing to the outside network, to the device that is having an address of 1 here. So I will say IP route 00 and it's 192.168.11.1. If I try reaching 8.8.8 from here, I'm able to reach. So what I will do is I will save this, and that's it for this router. We will not touch this again. So I'll close this. So let's go ahead and configure IP addresses on the Palo Alto firewalls of my central site and Dubai site. So let me check the management IP address of the central site PA, this one, and let's see what the DHCP has assigned to this interface. Let me check that. So the username is admin, the password is admin, and show interface management. Don't worry about the CLI commands. We will go through the CLI. So the IP address that has been assigned is 11.104. So if I try to access 192.104, I should be able to access. And let me check the IP here as well. So admin, and show interface management. So this has got an IP address of 106. So it's 192. So we will change those IP addresses. So the username is admin, the password is admin. So it's giving me a warning message that you're using default username and password. I'll say okay, continue. So the first time when you log into a Palo Alto firewall, it will give you show you a welcome message, that which version of the PAN-OS you are using. And will take you to the dashboard by default. So it's giving me a welcome message that you're using PAN-OS version 9, and I'll close this. Don't worry about anything here. We will go through them all: the dashboard, the application command center, the monitor, and all these logs, app scope, PDF, etc., the policies, security nat, QS, decryption, etc., everything. We will go through them all one by one. The object creation, different types, the network section, we will go through them all. But for right now, what I will do is I will go ahead and assign IP addresses to these interfaces. And what I will do is I will quickly configure security NAT and quickly show you that how things look in a Palo Alto firewall from the GUI, how it actually looks. So what I will do is I will go to the network and interfaces, here interfaces. So first what I will do is I will configure the E12 interface that's connected to my inside network. So I'll click on Ethernet 1/2. So this is the interface name, and here you can give a comment to it. Let's give a comment of, let's say this is my inside interface, and here you can change the interface type. So don't worry about anything. Once again, we will go through them one by one. We will later on explain what is TAP, what is HA, high availability or virtual wire or layer 2. So right now I'll change this to layer 3, and net flow, we don't want to attach anything. We will go through this later on. And a virtual router, I'll select the default virtual router and I'll create a new security zone. So I'll create a new zone and now let's say call this inside, and the default is layer 3. Don't worry about these other stuff, we will go through them later. You can add interface here as well, but I'm going to it will directly add it here. So I'll click on IPv4, and here this is how you can assign an IP address. You can create address object. Later on we will create objects as well, and then you can add those objects here. So what I will do is I will give an IP address of 1.1 here /24. This is the interface, E1/2, Ethernet 1/2, and having an address from this range, which is 192.168.1.0, and the first IP address I'm going to assign here. And what I will do is I will also go, for the purpose of testing, what I will do is I will assign and create a management profile, because by default the Palo Alto firewalls would block any type of traffic, whether that's ICMP traffic or let's say UDP or TCP traffic on any of these interfaces, whether that's inside DMZ or outside or any interface. It will basically block those traffic. So what I will do is I will create a management profile for this, and I will only, let's say, allow right now ping. So I'll just call this, let's say, ping, and I'll attach that profile so that we could we are able to basically ping it. So I'll OK, and the next interface is Ethernet 1/3, which is this one, and the IP address what I want to assign is from 172 range. So let me convert this to layer 3, default virtual router, and I'll create another zone for this, and I'll call this, let's say, DMZ, and OK, and I'll assign an IP of 172.16.1.1.24. So this range and first IP address, and I'll attach the management profile that we previously created, ping, and OK. And let me also give a comment to it. Let's say this is my DMZ interface, because we would be able to see it here. And the other interface is Ethernet 1/1, which is this interface and connected to my outside, the public network or internet. So this is the Ethernet 1/1. So I'll convert this to layer 3, and I will put this in the virtual router, default virtual router, and I'll create a new security zone for this, and I'll call this outside, and default is layer 3. OK, and IPv4, and the IP subnet is 134.15.22, and first IP address, so it's 134.15.22.1/24. so I hope it is 134. Yes, it is. So the next thing we will go is attach the management profile, ping, and that's all, I guess, and we will give a comment to it. So this is how you assign IP addresses to the interfaces. The next thing, we will go and create a static default route pointing to my internet, this router, the service provider or whoever that is, and the IP address is 2. So I'll click on the default virtual router, and I'll click on static, and I'll add. So the name, let's say we call it default route, and for any network having any mask, send that out of which interface, Ethernet 1/1, and shall it be an IP address, or we will go through them all later on. Just right now I'll leave it as IP address. So the IP is 134.15.22.2, and we will go through the rest, the admin distance metric, etc. later on, the path monitoring. Okay, and the next thing what we will do is let me commit these changes, and let's try to ping them, ping my inside, outside, and DMZ. So I'll commit the changes, commit. Don't worry about the commit, the changes that we will that we are saving right now. We will go through them again. So let me check if I'm able to ping from Windows 10 client PC the inside interface of the Palo Alto firewall. So if I ping 192.168.1.1, so I'm able to ping 192.168.1.1, the Ethernet 1/2 of the central side PA firewall, this one, and the changes are basically saved here. So what we will do is, now we will go ahead and configure Nat rule, where we would specify this inside subnet to be able to go outside, and specifically we would configure path for it to be translated to this IP address in this range, and then we will create a security rule to allow that traffic, because by default Palo Alto firewalls does not allow traffic to go through it or between different zones. We will explain that later on, but right now I'm just going to create one. So we need to go to the policies, Nat. So I'll go ahead and create a new rule. So I'll call this, let's say, inside to outside. Inside to outside. We can give description tag. We will go through them later on. Group 1, type 4, type v6, v4 to v6, or we can do that. We will go through this later on. The original packet is sourced from the inside zone. Destination zone is outside. We'll leave the destination interface, service, source address, destination address as default right now. We'll click on the translated packet. Here we will go ahead and select the dynamic IP and port, and instead of IP translated address, we will go ahead and select the interface address. And which interface? It's Ethernet 1/1. And what is the IP address of that? It is 134.15.22.1, which is this interface and this range and this IP address. Okay, and the next thing is, we need to create a security rule right now, because by default it won't allow the traffic from the inside zone to the outside. We will go through the interzone and intrazone default rules that are here later on, but right now I'll create a new one. So once again I will call this, let's say, inside to outside, or maybe line to WAN. Well, let's call it inside to outside. So I'll leave everything default here. The source zone is once again inside. The destination zone is outside, and application I will leave it as default. Service and URL I will leave as default, and on the action, what I need to make sure is that I select allow here. So I'll go ahead and OK this. Now I'll commit the changes, commit. So the next thing, we will go ahead and try to ping from the inside to outside if I'm able to access the public network. Now let the changes save. So my changes are successfully committed. So I'll close this and I'll go to my Windows 10 client PC. And if I try to ping 8.8.8, I should be able to ping the public network. If I even try to browse it, I should be able to browse. So let's go ahead and try to access Google. Sorry. So I'm able to browse as well. Now let's go back to the dashboard. So here in the dashboard, you can see general information, the system resources, the logged in, who is logged into the device, the data logs, the system logs, config logs, and ACC application controls center details here. On the general information, you can see the device name, the IP address, mask, the gateway, the IPv6 address, the MAC address of the device, the model, the serial number, and these two basically are required for the activation, the CPU ID and UUID, and the serial number as well. So for the activation, the Palo Alto would ask you for the details of these three. And right now I'm using VM version, where I do not have any license for this, and I'm just using this for the purpose of testing. So there is no license, and the versions of this is the software, the PanOS version, and this is the Global Protect version, which is in Cisco. They have VPN client, and Fortinet has 40 client, and Checkpoint has a secure remote access, and the application version is this one. The URL version is this, and this is the clientless version, and the time, the uptime, and the plugin VM series details. And the system resource utilization is being shown here. The CPU management CPU and the data plane CPU. So that is one beauty in the Palo Alto firewalls, that they have separate chips or chipsets for the management plane and for the data plane. So they are basically separate CPUs for that. So you can see them both here. The utilization, who is logged in right now, only the admin that is using the web UI is logged in. If I also try to log in from the CLI, it will show me that admin. So now I should be able to see another. If I try to refresh this, I'm also seeing that another admin user is logged in from the CLI as well. So you can see those details here. These are the data logs. Right now we don't have anything there in the system logs. These are the changes that we recently have brought. So the system logs are being shown here. The changes, the config changes that we recently on the virtual system 1, we created a security rule. So it's being shown here. We created a Nat rule here on this, who created it, the admin, on which date and time. So all the config logs are being shown here. So you can modify these widgets as well. You can move them from, let's say you may want to say that I don't want this general information to be there, it should be here. So you can drag them based on your own will, and you can also change this from 3 columns to 2 columns here. So you can change it here, or if you wanted to add more widgets, you can also add from here. So let's say you want to add top applications. So right now it will top applications are being added here. So if you want to, let's say, add maybe high availability. So right now I have not configured the HA here. So you can let's say interfaces. So this widget is also being added. You can change the refresh timer here from 5 minutes to 2 minutes, or maybe 1 minute. Or if you refresh here, it will refresh all the widgets. If you refresh this one, it will only refresh that specific widget. So it would only refresh that one. So this is the dashboard, the Palo Alto firewall dashboard. let's go ahead and change the IP address of the management interface from 104 to the 215 here. I've assigned on the topology I've given 15 here and 16 to the Dubai side firewall. So what I'll do is I'll go to the device and general settings. I'll click here, and let's also assign the host name for it. So it's PA central site. So I'll call this, let's say, PA dash central site. The domain name I don't want to change here right now. I'll okay this, and I'll go to the interfaces and management, and from DHCP I'll go and select static. Don't worry about anything right now. We will go through them one by one. What is this HTTP or HTTPS or SSH or Telnet is doing here? So I only am going to give you basic overview here right now. So the address is 192.168.11.15 and the mask is 24 and the gateway is 11.1, and I will say okay here, and I will also go to the Dubai site and try to access and change the IP address there as well for the management interface. So I'll commit the changes here, commit, and we will configure 11.16 here on the management interface. So device, and I'll change the host name, and the host name is PA Dubai site. Okay, and interfaces, and the IP is 11.16 and the gateway is 11.1. Okay, and commit. So the changes are committed here, and now we should be able to access it on 15 address. Admin. So now my host name has been changed from PAVM to PA central site, and should also be able to access 16 now. Continue. So admin. So you can see I'm able to access both of them. So that is the basic overview. In the next trainings or videos, we will try to explain everything in further details. And until next time, thank you.